Iowa's in the books, so now all attention turns to New Hampshire, where the first in the nation primary will be held a week from today. Iowa did at least part of its job, knocking out two candidates, Republican Mike Huckabee, Democrat Martin O'Malley, but this horse race is far from over. So here's where things stand now. On the GOP side, Cruz is claiming victory. His prize, a whopping 8 delegates, while Trump and Rubio are getting 7 each. On the Democrat side, Clinton was officially declared the winner this afternoon by the skin of her teeth, claiming 23 delegates to Sanders' 21. Better yet, in at least 6 precincts, this is true, local delegates were awarded with a coin toss last night, like in Ames, where the result was disputed after 60 caucus goers somehow disappeared during the proceedings. There were at least 6 coin tosses total, and some were caught on camera.
Call it in the air. It is tails.
No one touch it. Hillary. What do you mean?
Great way to elect a president, don't you think? At any rate, we have a lot of candidates claiming victory today.
Tonight is a victory for courageous conservatives across Iowa and all across this great nation.
We finished second, and I want to tell you something. I'm just honored.
The people of this great state have sent a very clear message. After 7 years of Barack Obama, we are not waiting any longer to take our country back.
I stand here tonight breathing a big sigh of relief. Thank you, Iowa.
For folks who did not think Bernie Sanders could win, that we could compete against Hillary Clinton, I hope that that thought is now gone.
So today, other than Ben Carson, who went home to do his laundry, they're all in New Hampshire. What lies ahead, though? Joining me to talk about it are Mo Cowan, former U.S. Senator and Chief of Staff to Governor Deval Patrick. He's now a Senior Vice President, Mintz Levin. Good to see you again. Gabriel Gomez, the Republican, ran for the Senate seat vacated by now Secretary of State John Kerry. He's a former Navy SEAL and founder of obstacle course company O2X. Gabriel, it's good to see you again. Neither of them have a candidate they've been committed to yet. Let's start with you. Did Hillary win this thing or did Bernie win this thing? I know in terms of pure numbers, it was Hillary Clinton. Who really got the mileage out of last night?
You stole my line, Jim. I was going to say 23 is more than 21, so the numbers speak for themselves. You know, candidly, I think they both won, and that's not a cop-out. I think it was a great show by Senator Sanders. I think it's tremendous momentum. He seems like he has a strong lead in New Hampshire. I think the Democratic primary is going to go on for quite a while. But keep in mind, Secretary Clinton came in third in 2008. This was a big win. It showed the strength of her ground game. And I think if you look at the breakdown between who voted for whom, it tells some very interesting stories in there.
I want to get to that breakdown in a second. Do you buy this notion they both won in Iowa last night, the two Democrats?
No, I think Bernie Sanders won more
Why?
than Hillary Clinton did. I think when you look at the breakdown of actually who voted and who voted for who, you're going to see that the people that are most energized and the younger people, which I think are the ones that are going to come out and vote in 2016, Sanders actually overwhelmingly beat Hillary Clinton.
Were you reading my notes, Gabriel
No,
Gomez? Let's put that up right now if we can. Here are 17 to 29-year-olds yesterday in Iowa. 70-point margin for Bernie Sanders. And compare that to 2008. The margin for Barack Obama was only 40 points. So 40 versus 70. What was the point you're going to make about young voters?
I was going to say that he actually outperformed Barack Obama back in 2008.
You know, it seems that, I would say if I were Hillary Clinton, the reason I'd worry about those numbers, because obviously she did terrifically well with older people, is young voters, particularly those voting for the first time, generally are more idealistic. And when all of a sudden their hopes are dashed, their guy didn't come away with a victory, maybe they're not going to stay in this process if Bernie Sanders doesn't stay in this process. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I think Secretary Clinton has to connect with that audience. We've been saying for a long time, millennials are the largest generation. They're going to be the largest voting bloc for a while. Those numbers, I'm sure, are of some concern to her campaign, but she has a strong campaigner. She's got a strong team behind her. I think she'd probably close the gap in New Hampshire significantly, but I also think they're playing a long game.
Let's look at that gap in New Hampshire since Senator Cowan just mentioned it. Here is the gap in last night's poll, and obviously this is before the results are in. Sanders crushing Hillary Clinton, a couple points more than the night before. she has to narrow that lead at least, even though she's apparently doing great in South Carolina, which is number 3. She can't lose by 33 points in New Hampshire and not lose some cred, Gabriel Gomez, no?
I agree, and I think that one thing that, the millennials is the fastest growing demographic that's going to start voting, I think. And look at the way these campaigns are being run now. It's all about social media. At least the majority of it is social media. And who's on social media? The millennials, not so much the baby boomers or the senior citizens. It's going to be the millennials, and that's how you're going to get more and more people to vote. And I think Bernie Sanders has figured that out.
I'd say in terms of big-time Democrats, other than you, who are uncommitted, there's another Democrat who's a senator who is still out, Elizabeth Warren. What do you think is going on? I mean, that would be a huge catch. Obviously, the economic populism of Bernie Sanders, if she went for Clinton, a huge blow to Sanders. Obviously, a huge lift to Sanders, too, if she abandoned the woman frontrunner. And what's going on with her?
I don't know. I haven't spoken with her about it. Here's a little bit of supposition. Okay?
Yeah, okay, fine.
I think Elizabeth recognizes this is going to be a tight race. It's a great way for her to be the senior senator from Massachusetts, potentially have a lot of influence and shape the race, because I think both Sanders and the Clinton campaign they covet the Elizabeth endorsement, and so they're going to want to campaign in a way that speaks to Elizabeth and the people who follow Elizabeth and what she believes in. That is tremendous influence she's going to continue to exercise even without endorsing one or the other.
What's your hypothesis as to why? Maybe it is to be a kingmaker, which she potentially could be. She's really popular on the key issue on the Democratic side, the income inequality deal.
No, I think it's actually more where, she firmly believes that the people should decide. And I don't think she wants to actually impose herself on the will against somebody that's actually going to be out there voting.
Really?
So I really do.
Okay, let's move to the Republican side, your side. Let's start with the loser. I know you're not a big fan of this guy's to begin with. He came in second, Donald Trump. He almost came in third. Obviously, Marco Rubio is within a point. Is this fatal to the guy? How damaging is coming in second? And by the way, he was ahead in 13 straight polls in Iowa, this being Donald Trump. How damaging is this loss?
Look, as they said in the famous movie, there are no points for second place. And I think Donald Trump showed yesterday, using his own words, he's a loser now. He's going to be viewed completely differently now going forward. My guess is that this is going to be actually a lot more fatal than first.
Is that what you want it to be, or what you actually think? I know you can't stand him, but I mean, it's true, isn't it? So is that what you want it to be, or actually you think what's going to happen?
No, it's not from the heart. This is actually what I do think.
Okay, so out there in Iowa, Sarah Palin did that rather odd endorsement and apparently didn't help.
Yes.
Well, Scott Brown, you've heard of him. Scott Brown is endorsing Trump today. What impact does that have in your estimation in New Hampshire? He did pretty well. He didn't win the race in the Senate there, but he did pretty well against Shaheen.
You mean Scott?
Scott Brown, I'm sorry, yes.
Look, I don't think it's going to have much of an end. First of all, Trump, I believe, is leading in the polls in New Hampshire.
Yeah, he is. Let's bring that up while Senator Cowan is speaking.
Look, and with all due respect to Senator Brown and any of these endorsements, the only thing I endorse is people making up their own minds and doing their own investigation and picking the right candidate here. I don't think Scott's going to move the needle a great deal. I agree with Gabriel. I think Trump and the Trump campaign are probably taking a hard look at themselves today and recognizing that, first of all, this is a lot harder than they thought.
By the way, we just put the poll. He's up by 24 points. Again, that's without the impact of the Iowa thing. For people who love to hate pollsters and pundits, this side was a field day. I mean, not only did Trump was ahead in the most recent 13 polls, but the conventional wisdom out of there was from everybody. If the turnout is high, and my understanding was there's a record on the Republican side, it helps Trump because they're all those first-time voters. It turns out they grossly underestimated the power of the evangelical turnout, and this conventional wisdom was turned on its head. So you probably loved it that the media's embarrassed, right?
I don't think it's so much that it was the evangelicals, even though I will agree that Cruz got a lot of them. But I think it's a double-edged sword with this high turnout for Trump, because I think he actually drew a lot more people out there that were against him. And that's one of the reasons I think he actually didn't win. He was a loser last night.
So we had John King from CNN on the radio today, and I was saying, so Cruz is a one-state wonder like Huckabee and Santorum. Right. He said, no. He says the difference between Cruz and Huckabee and Santorum, they left there with no money. Cruz leaves Iowa with a victory and a ton of dough. So does he have a shelf life?
I think he does. I really think he does. And I'll disagree with Gabriel on this. I do think the evangelical turnout yesterday was very much a big part of the Cruz victory. And I think Ted's playing for a long game. I think he's looking, frankly, past New Hampshire. I know he's there today, and he'll campaign hard.
SEC primaries, but you used to call it Super Tuesday on March 1st.
He's playing for the Bible Belt.
Okay, most people I spoke to think the real winner today, somebody I think you have pretty warm feeling for, is Marco Rubio. Is that a fair statement?
I mean,
you like him? Well, okay, fine. You don't have to even say. Is he the best candidate? I'm going to ask you both the same question. Is he the most feared by the Democrats, and is he the best candidate to win this thing? Who's the most electable of this whole field?
I think of those, I think Marco Rubio is the most electable. I think one thing that's interesting about last night is if you look at the Democratic side compared to the Republican side. On the Republican side, out of the top 4 finishers, 3 were minorities. You had 2 Latinos and an African American.
That's a great point.
If you look at the Democratic side, you've got 2 older white people that have been around forever. If you add up the total number of years in office of the top 4 in the Republican, I think it comes up to like less than 10 years.
Well, and you could have a mid-40-year-old guy, this Latino, this Cuban-American, Marco Rubio, standing next to either a 69-year-old or a 74-year-old Democrat. That's to be feared, is it not, Mo Cowan?
Well, you get that with Ted Cruz as well.
That's a good point. That's right.
I think among the leading Republicans, and we'll define leading as who placed where last night, I think Marcos probably has the best shot in a general election. Gabriel makes a good point. The top 3 finishers in the Republican primary were people of color. I will say 2 of those 3, and arguably the 3rd, also have taken some pretty hard lines on immigration. So I doubt that that's going to play very well in a national election. But if I'm a Democrat, I keep my eye on Marco Rubio. I think the Trump and the Cruz phenomena will take care of themselves.
Mo Cowan, great to see you. Thanks so
Always a
much,
pleasure.
Senator. Gabriel Gomez, wonderful to see you.
Absolutely.
As always.
Thank you.